Good morrow, weary traveler. Please picture this for a moment. You head to your nearest Renaissance fair. Luckily, you have your ticket pre-bought, so you head right in. And as you walk around, you see this strange-looking booth. If you talk to the employees, they state that they run this game that they made after going to a Renaissance fair and deciding this is not nerdy enough. So they turned it into a, quote, fair-wide role-playing experience. Now, luckily, you have the coin, but you don't have the experience. You do not know how to play. Luckily, you can ask a vendor. But if you don't wish to do that, this is the video for you. Alright, you bought your admission into this event, but oh wait, you don't have a character yet. Luckily, I know how to do that. First, you're going to pick a class. The options are between the rogue, warrior, and the mage, which the stat blocks for those will be up there. And by stat block, I mean it's similar to D&D in which you level up, and it goes along with your corresponding class and what you get. First, let's go over the mages as they go into the most in depth. Alright, let's go into the mages, and I do have some papers, but that's because I can't remember all of this. Let's start off with the following. The mage tree. Now, this is just a general thing to get you on your way to becoming more skilled in, say, sorcery, world shaping, or, if you prefer necromancy, death. It's right here. So let's first talk about the sorcery tree. Alright, let's talk about the sorcery tree. Now, as the name implies, it does have sorcery, but by that they mean elements, which I can explain at a later date. But you can choose fire, lightning, water, and earth, and they will all have different effects depending on what you're fighting. And the sorcery tree also allows you to create elementals. Next is the world shaper tree. Now this is about creation, so gust of wind or illusions that people cannot detect, or perhaps you want to make a clay golem. And last, the death tree. This is all about raising the dead to make them serve you. So, good for all you edgelords out there. Alright, next is the rogue. And depending on what you want to play depends on the type of class you might pick. For example, perhaps you want to be nimble and quick, then the acrobat tree would be the best for you. Or you imagine your character to be a thief, wandering around the streets at night, stealing gold from anyone's pockets you can find. Or perhaps you want to be an assassin, possibly for hire to get some more zenny of yours. Alright, first is the acrobat tree. Now, from looking at this, it allows you to avoid and evade different attacks that you might see along your day-to-day. Next is the archery tree. This is pretty self-explanatory. If you have a bow and arrow, perhaps you could shoot things from range. Next is the thief. Now, from looking at this, obviously it allows you to save or take money from other players. Next is the assassin's tree. This allows you to deal extra damage by either poisoning or possibly hiding away from your enemies to deal damage later. Alright, and next is the swashbuckler. These people seem to be more persuasive than others, allowing them to get away with more stuff than normally. Alright, next are the warriors. And these people are the ones that deal the most damage. These are the ones that if you want to be a berserker, for example, or a swashbuckler or archer like previously, or perhaps you want to serve a righteous god as a holy knight. Alright, first, the berserker tree. Now, one thing I'm immediately realizing while reading this is that you deal damage, but you also take damage. So, it could be helpful to turn the tides of battle. The holy knight, or the holy knight tree. This allows you to deal extra damage to the undead, the ones that should remain there. And then archery and swashbuckler are the exact same as previously. Alright, now you have your character. Now, let's get to leveling you up. Now, the way you're going to want to do this most is by getting quests seen on the quest boards. Now, this does require some social interaction, but I believe you can do it. Especially the easy ones. There are usually some easier ones that you can get pretty early on, for example, asking some questions or other things like that. For this, I recommend carrying a notebook on you. Okay, next is zenny. Now, this is what you're going to be either saving or stealing as a thief or a swashbuckler. Now, there are multiple different versions. There are green zenny, orange zenny, and white zenny. Now, I only carry two of those, the green and the white. The green, which I will show, it's just a small little gem. It is worth 1 point, since technically it's just worth 1 of itself. And the next is the white zenny that I have. This is worth 10 of the green. And in the middle there's the orange, which represents a intermediate. Alright. Next is items, and this can be bought with in-game currency. I'll show the charts as I explain. There are arcane items, which are more powerful and can do things that can help you every day. There are also just regular items that can be anything from a weapon to some gear. Now, if you end up buying something at the fair, I recommend enchanting it. This is when you go to the fair, or you go to the runners of the game, you say, hey, I just bought this item. And they write down a card explaining what that will do in game, and it's enchanted, thus allowing you to use it in game. Alright, next are the guilds. Now, as you've been doing this, possibly going to raids and other events, you've likely hit level 4 pretty quickly. And that's when you can pick a guild. I'll go over 3 that are officially put out by the game right now. First one is the Bard's Guild. Now, you have to be trained by someone else to become a bard. But there are also a list of tasks that you must complete, but it gives you benefits. For example, if you're an apprentice, you can give +1 inspiration to certain allies. You can busker. You may make a special hard persuasion challenge roll performance once per day to earn 1d4 zeni. So this is a way to make money quickly. And then a story collector. The bard gains 1 free hint per quest, which is a spell that can help you with making more XP quicker. Next is the ranger. This is all about knowing creatures and getting better. This is all about knowing creatures and better terrain. They give you a few abilities at apprentice level. Hunter, giving you +2 combat bonus to one type of foe, your prey, as you set a prey to do extra damage to. Then there's tracking. You may roll a challenge roll to gain clues about foes based on their tracks and signs. So perhaps there's a weird looking tentacle monster and you can see the tracks. And then the totem animal. Rangers choose one beast naturally present in the land surrounding them, the Shire. If one of those creatures can be seen during a combat encounter, the ranger gains a +2 inspiration on any challenge roll being made. This last feat can be especially helpful if you live in an area of the forest. I recommend picking squirrels for this one, as they can be seen almost everywhere. Next is the monk. Now, this doesn't have apprentice like the other two, it has initiate. And the upsides to these ones are meditation. You can center yourself as a task, then get a +4 to your next combat roll. Especially helpful if you're in a boss fight. Focused mind. Monk initiate gains +2 challenge rolls versus mental attacks and -4 combat to chaos. Then there's the Way of the Fist and Foot. +2 combat bonus when wearing no armor and no weapons. So you have a pretty good advantage even if you are stripped of your weapons and items. Now you're allowed to join 2 guilds at a time. However, if you leave one, you can never go back to it. And I wouldn't recommend leaving it anyways because you also lose your benefits. Alright, that is the most basic way to play Dice Knights. Now, I hope you all have a good time, and I can almost assure you that it'll be easy to play. But first, let's mention that elemental thing I briefly went over earlier. So first, fire. Fire does 1 extra damage, or 1 heart of extra damage to undead creatures. Earth gives a +4 combat bonus to unarmored foes. So I would check with your game master to determine what armoring is, because it can vary depending on their view of it. Then there's ice. It nullifies any attempts of escaping a creature, which can be helpful if you are on a limited time limit. Then there's lightning. Gives you a +4 combat bonus to, quote, +4 combat bonus versus any foe using metal. And with that, I bid you adieu. Have a good day.